Top squash player Ramit Tandon told nnis Sports in an exclusive interview that Ali Amr Farag is the toughest player he has faced on a squash court. Ali Farag is a professional squash player who represents Egypt. He is currently ranked world number 1 since September 2021. He has been twice world champion. Ramit has known Ali Farag since his university days in the US, and it is an old rivalry among them. Ramit is ranked 47th in the world. Ramit has also captained the Indian junior team to a historic gold medal, beating Pakistan. He was also part of the Under 21 World Cup team that secured silver. He is now targeting the Commonwealth Games and Asian Games this year. Who has been the toughest opponent you've faced so far?
I mean, see, everyone's tough. It is very difficult to say who has been the toughest. I mean, Ali Farag, he's the world number 1 right now. We have been college rivals. So he went to Harvard while I went to Columbia. So we had a bit of a rivalry in the junior squash, and then we both went to college. And now we both are on the professional circuit. So I think he is one of the toughest guys I've competed with, just because obviously he has all the skill sets as a squash player, but just mentally also he's very, very difficult to break down. So I would say Ali is kind of one of the toughest guys out there.
Do you ever feel sad that squash is not part of the Olympics?
Yes. I mean, I wish squash was part of the Olympics. Olympics is definitely the epitome of sport, and I think every athlete would love to participate in the Olympics. At the same time, I also feel squash has been trying to make the Olympics for quite some time, and I feel it brings a bit of negative energy to the sport when we start talking about it in this way, that we wish squash was in the Olympics. I think, as an athlete, it's kind of beyond my control to kind of get squash into the Olympics, right? There are people, there's the World Squash Federation, there's the Professional Squash Association. These guys I know are working very hard to kind of make that happen. So from my perspective, I kind of still enjoy the ups in the sport. I think, if you compare squash, if you do a decade by decade comparison, the sport has come a long way. So I think that's something that we also need to celebrate. And I'm hopeful that someday we will make it to the Olympics.
What are the things you think you need to improve?
I mean, see, there's always room for growth there. There are many aspects. I think every match I play, there are things we pick out, whether it's the physical aspect, whether it's the mindset, or it's the temperamental aspect. So there are different areas that we are always working on. I mean, fitness obviously is a big part of our sport, and it's something that I kind of feel there are areas in that strength and fitness that I'm working on with my fitness team. And apart from that, at this level of sport, more than improvement, it's about adapting to different scenarios, which, in certain scenarios, as an athlete, you don't seem to adapt as well. So we work more on kind of figuring out the scenarios I'm not comfortable with, and then trying to kind of master those situations. Because if you look at the game from just the technical standpoint and the standpoint of hitting the ball and stuff, I've been doing it for so long that it's very difficult to break down and find areas where you feel, okay, I need to make a massive improvement here or there. At this level of professional sport, everyone is good to a certain extent, but it's just different situations where people kind of lack certain things. So we kind of try to look at the situations that create discomfort for me, and then I try to work on those.
We would like to know how Ramit was as a college student in New York.
I mean, the minute you say college, it automatically brings a smile to my face. So yeah, if I was to describe it in one word, it was a lot of fun. I think a bond you have with your school or college, it stays with you for life. Actually, I'm actually wearing it right now as we speak. Yeah. So it is. I believe it's an amazing experience. I'm a huge believer in academics as well. I always tell people, like, if you can balance the two, that would be great, right? Because as an athlete, a sportsman's journey is very short. Other professions, people can go on, they can work till 50, 60, or the retirement age. But as an athlete, around the mid-30s or latest 30s, you're kind of done with that career. So I always feel, in the second innings of your life, you will kind of require a different skill set, which I believe you kind of should acquire at an earlier stage. But apart from that, I think Colombia has given me a lot as a person, as an individual. It's the first time I actually stayed away from home, stayed away from my parents. And obviously, Indian parents, you get pampered and you feel a lot of love. So once they release you, you kind of have to kind of manage and do things on your own, which in itself is a challenge. So that kind of helped me grow individually. Apart from that, obviously, it's a fine institution. So academically, I had some amazing professors. I shared the classroom with some real geniuses from across the world, which was a great experience. And then, fortunately for me, even the U.S. The time I moved to New York, the U.S. was picking up in squash. So I had training partners like the great Rami Ashur, who was the world number one at that point. He just moved to New York, and some other players top 20 in the world. So even for my squash, it was like a perfect situation. And overall, I think it was a little hectic because I was trying to balance. I was still representing India and coming back for the major events. So it got a little hard to kind of handle academics with the squash. I had to give up a bit on the social life, but that's just a small price to pay to kind of pursue your passion. So yeah, overall it was fun. I mean, some of my best friends are from there now. So yeah, it was amazing.
Take us through your daily routine.
A daily routine. I mean, it these days it gets a little difficult to plan and have a daily routine just because you never know when there are lockdowns and what's happening. But if I'm in India, normally I have like 3 sessions a day. So I start my first session around 7:30 a.m., which is usually a session with my coach, which is a skill oriented session. And after that, around 11ish, I kind of get into the gym where I do like my fitness stuff. And then my third session is around like 7 p.m. And in between, I kind of do a bit of work as well. I work with this company, it's called EAP Group. So, I mean, it's a very flexible kind of situation. They don't put a lot of pressure on me because they do understand my commitment is towards my sport at this point in time. But it's something where I mean I like doing it as well because I have a bit of gap in between like my midday session and my evening session, so I kind of put in some time, kind of use my brains a little more, try to keep that academic skill set that I required a little more relevant. And then I get back to the squash court around 7. I train till around 9:30, and normally after that, sometimes at 10 p.m. I have a bit of physiotherapy lined up at home. So that's how my day usually goes. Obviously, in between that, I do eat and I do drink water and stuff. So that's taken into account. But yeah,
Who is your inspiration or role model and why?
in sports, probably. I mean, I did mention Sachin. I'm a big Roger Federer fan as well. I think the way Roger plays the game, obviously, he's a fabulous talent on the court, but I'm a big fan of the way he conducts himself. Um, and apart from that, I'm a big Usain Bolt fan because what he's achieved is kind of remarkable, right? I'm a big believer in consistency, and what he's done consistently in Olympic after Olympic is it sounds easy because it's Usain Bolt and people say it like it's nothing, but you do understand even defending one title once is hard enough. To defend it in multiple Olympic games, which is in the gap of 4 years, you can only imagine how difficult that is. So yeah, these guys.
What next for Ramit Tandon?
I mean, there's yet a lot to do. One of the biggest questions me and other squash players, the top squash players in India, face today is the junior generation looks at us and says, well, why are we not world champions, right? Why aren't we winning the major events? So obviously, one goal is definitely like a larger goal for me and other squash players as well, is to kind of break that ice and try to win some of the major events, climb up in the rankings. So that's definitely one thing because we feel where squash is, I think we are where badminton was a few years ago. And if one of us kind of gets it right, it's kind of going to change the dynamic of the game in the country. Like if you see with badminton, once Saina Nehwal and PV Sindhu kind of won a couple of major events, it's just changed the dynamic of the sport in the country. And I think that's where squash is at this point in time. We need to kind of have some of those performances at the majors, uh, which could kind of turn around the future of the game in India. So that's one thing. Apart from that, definitely Asians, Commonwealth Games coming up. So we are looking, hopefully to get a couple of gold medals over there. And then the long term, obviously, is to break into the top 10 of the world. So yeah.
Who's your coach at the moment and how do you train? Any specific technique or coaching?
Right. So my coach actually, he is in the New York area. His name is Hisham Attar. He's an Egyptian. And my fitness coach is in Calcutta. His name is Anwar Wahab. And then in Calcutta, I have someone, his name is Dilip Tripathi. He coached me when I was growing up in Calcutta. So there's a lot of coordination going on because normally I base myself in New York. I train out of there. But because of the travel constraints and stuff, it's become a little difficult to do that. So there's a lot of virtual training going on, a lot of stuff, thanks to technology these days. The way we're doing this, there's a lot of improvisation and we kind of try to coordinate and I've been kind of making videos of my training, which I then send to my coach in New York, who kind of looks at the technical and tactical points. So yeah, there is definitely a lot of new stuff that we are trying. In terms of technical points, we are working on a couple of things in the mindset actually, more than really the on-court technicals, a bit more of aggression in my game, and we're working on things like that. Yeah.